Okay, so today's lesson is going to be on slopes. The next two sections, we're going to be finding slopes of lines, finding the equations of lines, drawing lines using the slope. All right. So to find the slope, we need 2 points on the line. You've probably heard slope defined as rise over run. Now, when we're talking about rise, we're talking about, of course, going up and down. Run, we go left to right. The slope formula is this: y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So you take the 2 points and you take the y value from each point and you subtract them, put them in the top. In the bottom, you take the 2 x values and subtract them. Now, I'll give you a second to make sure you write this down. I am recording this so you can play this back anytime you want to. All right, I'm going to clear the screen and we're going to do some problems. Let's say I am given, hold on, let me increase this. Suppose I am given 2 points, -3, 2, and 5, 7. This is the formula. Now notice they have minus signs to start with. Here's what I like to do. I like to put my parentheses, I put the minus sign in between them, and then I'll put the numbers from the point in the parentheses. Now, it doesn't matter which one you use. I always use the second point as the y2, x2. So I'm going to take the 7 from the second point, put it first, then put the 2. If you need to, you could always label this y1, x1, y1, x2, y2. Then the 5 goes next, and the -3 goes in the second. From there, we just simplify it. 7 minus 2 is 5. And the bottom, there's a negative in front of a negative, which makes that positive. So this really turns out to be 5 plus 3, which gives me 8. So this is the slope of a line between those 2 points. All right. Let's do some more examples. Let's say my 2 points are, oops. Let's say my 2 points are 7, -4, -8, -9. Again, put my 2 parentheses and a minus sign in between. All right. So the second point is the x2, y2. So in the top goes the -9. That's the second y. First y is -4. -8 is the second x, and +7 is the first x. Now we're going to simplify it. In the top, 2 negatives become positive, so it's -9 plus 4, -5. -8 minus 7 is -15. Now, always simplify your slope if you can. The 2 negatives become positive. 5 over 15 is 1/3. So that, okay, you probably just heard my dog bark. Just ignore it. So that's the slope. All right, let's do some more. Let's say I had, whoops. Let's say my 2 points was 6, 8, and -3, 8. Again, formula. All right, the second y is 8, and the first y is 8. So on the top, we have the same thing. Bottom, second x is -3, first x is +6. All right, look at the top. I'm going to get 0. In the bottom, we get -9, but it doesn't matter what we get in the bottom as long as there's a 0 up top, the slope is 0. Now, this is a special type of line. I'll talk about that in the next lesson, but it is possible to have a slope of 0. All right, next question, our next problem. Let's say we have -5, 10 and -5, 8. So again, draw my little formula with this parentheses. All right, so the second x, and I'm assuming the second y is 8, and the first y is 10. Second x is -5, the first x is -5. Now this time what happens is, of course, we'll get -2 up top, 0 in the bottom. Now, when you're finding slope and you get 0 in the bottom, what that means is your slope is what we call undefined. That means something special. It doesn't mean there is no slope. It means we don't know what it is. So it's not that it doesn't have a slope, we just don't know how to find it. So if you get 0 in the denominator when you're finding slopes, that means it's undefined. That's a special type of line I'll talk about later also. Now, your slopes can be positive, they can be negative, they can be fractions, they can be whole numbers, they can be undefined, and they can be zeros. Now, I guess while I'm here, I'll go ahead and tell you, let me just show you. If you have a positive slope, when you sketch your line, the line will go uphill. Positive slopes go up. If you have a negative slope, you can probably figure this out. Your line will go downhill. For the 0 and the undefined, here's what they'll look like. For a slope equals 0, what you have is called a horizontal line. Looks like this, horizontal. Whoops, undo that. Horizontal line. When your slope is undefined, what you have is called a vertical line. You need to know this. The next lecture, we'll talk about how to graph horizontal, how to graph verticals, how to do the other ones. But just make sure that you understand this. Finding the slope is just plugging numbers in the formula. Once we get the formula and once we get the slope figured out, then we can figure out the equation of the line. And it's not terribly complicated, but this is all we have to do for the slope. All right, so I'm done with this presentation.